1, 2, 3. It's Eden Village Homestead, 'cause we're home instead.
Shalom, Eden Village. Welcome to Friction Fire, fire from sticks. Today we are going to learn how to make fire. Not with a lighter, not with matches, but from sticks and from string and rope that you can make and find out in the forest. Now listen up. I know this sounds like magic and craziness, but there is a hidden fire inside of every person, inside of every moment, and inside of every piece of wood that you ever meet. There's a fire from the Creator that comes through the fire and the sun. The trees eat the fire of the sun, load up the sun energy in their branches. We can take the branches, create a heat, and release the hidden fire inside of the wood. So stay tuned, stay aboard, and we're going to learn how to make a fire from sticks. All right, friends, here are some of the tools that you are going to need to make a friction fire. Now, you can actually buy friction fire bow drill sets on the internet. You can get tools from a hardware store, or you can gather all the tools that you need from the nature around you. If you're going to gather from nature, you're going to need a hand saw to cut off some branches or a piece of wood. And you're going to need a knife. You're going to need a strong knife that doesn't collapse or break. This knife has the shaft that goes all the way through. It's a really strong knife. So make sure that you have permission from your parent or guardian before you use these tools. You got to know the safety rules. These are dangerous. Some of the most basic rules of using a knife, the 4 big rules, are when you're carving, the knife should be the furthest thing away from you. Not like this, but like this. Always away. No other humanoids in your blood bubble, in your circumference. Every time you're stroking the knife, always go away from the body, never towards the body. If you go always away from the body, and the knife is the furthest thing away from your body, and there's no one in your blood bubble, you're not going to get hurt. The fourth rule is whenever you're done using the knife, put it in the case. So you're going to want a piece of softwood. Here I've got a piece of Israeli pine wood, which is a softwood. One of the ways to tell if a wood is a softwood is if you take your thumbnail and you stick it in, can it make an impression? That's one way to tell if it's a softwood. Cottonwood works really well. In Americas, the poplar tree is pretty popular with making bow drill sets. Okay, so you want to get yourself a nice piece with straight grains, and we're going to be basically making a fireboard, okay, and we're going to be making a spindle like this but rounded. That's going to go into the fireboard. We're going to need a handle to go on top of the spindle. We're going to then need to harvest a strong bow stick and attach a string around it, and those are the pieces that you need in order to make a friction bow drill fire. Alright, so we got this big piece of pine wood, softwood here, that we're going to use to create our flat piece on the bottom. But we need to sometimes harvest it from a bigger piece of wood. If you have an axe or a hatchet, you can hatch it to get your piece. I got my knife here. I'm going to show you a really cool way. It's called pounding, where you take your knife, it's got to be a strong knife, and you just pound down. Alright, and here you see we shaved off a piece of wood from the pine that we're going to use for our fireboard. That's going to be on the bottom. In the end, it's going to hopefully look something like this, okay? I don't know, about a thumb's width, maybe half an inch wide. It should be about 2 fists long. You're going to eventually put your foot on one side. Okay, and it should be as level as you can get it so that it'll sit on the earth really nicely. So I'm going to take this here piece of wood and try to sort of chop it down in a way so that it's a little bit more square. Just going to try to flatten down this part a little bit again. Try to save your shavings. Waste not, want not. Bal tashrit, there's a Jewish law about not wasting resources. It's a mitzvah. Okay, so one of the big 4 pieces that you need for your fire kit is the spindle. That's the shaft in the middle that spins so fast. It's going to be round all around. This is a piece of pine wood. Main things are you want it as long as from your pinky to your thumb. You want it about as thick as your thumb. And you want it as straight and round as possible. If it's not perfectly round, you're going to give yourself a huge headache in the future. So don't try to take a shortcut on this. Try to get it perfectly round. So you take your piece of wood, and you're gonna. This one it's square right now. I'm gonna go away from myself. And I'm gonna try to make it like an octagon. One end we're gonna carve into a pointy cone. And the other one's gonna be sort of like a shorter cone. The pointy, skinny cone, the long, skinny cone top, that's gonna go into our handle. And the shorter cone is gonna go into our fireboard. Try to get it perfectly round. All right, now I'm sawing the spindle to length. Well, one beautiful aspect about natural design and working with nature is there's usually very little to no waste, right? Forest doesn't waste resources. So as you're whittling, right now I'm still whittling the top of my spindle, the skinny long point top part of my spindle. You want to save all of these shavings. and pretty soon you're going to need a little tinder bundle, a little bird's nest to start a fire to catch your embers. Okay, friends, here we have our spindle. We got the top side is a little bit more slender. That's going to go into our handle. Okay? And this end is going to go into our fireboard. It's going to round out, but for starters, I'm going to need to drill our initial hole into the fireboard. So I left it a little bit sharp. By the way, keep all of your wood super duper 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 dry. If it gets a little bit moist, if you sweat on it, it ain't going to work. If the earth is a little bit moist, if the leaves under you are moist and you put your gear down on that moist earth, it might not work at all. So keep all of your wood super dry. All right, and I'm going to use this piece right here for our handle. This wood's a little bit lighter than I'd like. You can use a stone with a notch in it. You can use all sorts of things, but just sort of make sure that it's comfortable for your hand. It should be something that's pretty hard, like a hardwood. We might put a little bit of wax in there. We want this to be able to spin really well. So I'm gonna just like sort of carve this down a little bit so that it's a little bit more comfortable for me. Little notch on the underside of our handle so that the sharp end will fit in there and spin. So you take your knife, wear a glove for this because you don't want your knife to slip. You're basically just going to go tink, 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 and make a little divot that the end of that spindle is going to go into. Okay, now we're going to harvest a bow, like a bow and arrow. You want it to be about as long as your arm, and it's nice if it's got a little bit of a bow to your bow, and it has a Y at the tip because we're going to put a piece of rope around that. So we're looking for a strong piece of wood. It's okay if it's green, meaning it's alive. It doesn't have to be dead wood. It should be from a hardwood, something strong. So I found this branch here from this oak tree, and I like the shape. There's a Y right here. It's a little bit thin, but I think it'll do all right. Whenever you take from nature, it's always a good idea to take with listening and with gratitude and with as much beauty as you can. This branch was lying way underneath this thick canopy, and it's still alive, but you see it's browning. And as these bigger branches keep growing, I don't know that this branch actually was gonna make it too many years more. So that's part of the listening when taking. We are now going to connect our rope to our bow. This rope, it's called P cord or parachute cord. It's one of my favorite types of cord. I like to have a lot of it around. If you took my brother Yoni's cordage class, maybe you have some cordage, some rope that you made yourself from fibers in your backyard. You could try to use that. It's got to be very strong. I am going to make a bowline knot, one of the great knots of all knots. It does not slip or tighten, and it's very easy to undo. We start with a loop. Okay, and then you want to leave. This is going to be the loop that we're going to create. You go on the top side here, go through the hole, and you go over the log and then back in the hole. Okay, and you know that you got it if these two are lined up. If your loose end lines up with the loop, you just tighten it. It shouldn't slip at all. The loose end lines up. Looks like that. Okay. And that is going to go right here. Okay, now on the other end of our bow, I'm going to make a little ridge around here that our P cord is going to set in. And one of the ways to make a ridge is with notching. They call this, or beaver chewing. You just go notch, 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 and you go all the way around, making little notches. Okay, little notches. Okay. Now what you do is you turn it around the other way. Okay, so we've got a little notch. All right, and now we are going to connect our P cord to the bottom end through the notch. I'm going to tie a little knot here, go under it, go around, so it looks like this. And then we're just going to wrap it around a few times really tight. Our hand is going to be over this knot, so we'll be able to even actually adjust the tension on this end. Try to do it nice and clean. And we got our bow, some P cord. All right, now we are going to start setting our drill hole. So you want to set your spindle back a little bit from the edge of your fireboard. I'm going to find the center spot, tip my knife there, and I'm going to start spinning my knife to make a hole. All right, friends, here's the moment. We got our tools. Hopefully they're dry. Hopefully our spindles are straight and sharp. Our bow is strong. Our string is taut. Our handle firm. Fire inside of us is burning bright. We're going to start drilling into the dry fireboard. So set it up. Put your foot on the fireboard, your left foot on, your right knee back. Take your spindle. You're going to take the bottom side, the shorter side, not the long skinny side, the bottom side. You're going to put it on the inside of your bow. You're going to twist it around until it pops. It should go bloop, just like that. And now our skinny top side is on the top. You want to roll it back. Roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it. Okay. So that you can hold it with one hand like this. Look at that. Isn't that cool? All right, we got our spindle, we got our bow, we got our rope, all in one hand. You're going to take your handle. It's got a little notch on the inside. It's going to go on the top here, like this. And then come with me down here. And look, it's going to go, the bottom is going to go into the hole here. Make sure that you got enough room for bowing. What you're gonna do is do for starters, some very slow strokes. Keep everything lined up and straight. And here we go. Do some long strokes. Fire from Hashem feeds the fire from the sun, feeds the fire from the trees, feeds the fire that we light tonight. The fire from Hashem feeds the fire from the sun, feeds the fire from the trees, feeds the fire that we light. Now you see we generated quite a bit of smoke and some dust. That's wonderful. This was not to make a fire, this was actually just to drill down this hole a little bit, which we did. Okay, so we started to drill a little hole. This is where the spindle's gonna go, where a fire's gonna get made. Fire you need combustion, you need fuel, and you need oxygen. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna dig a little trench, a notch, we call it a notch, that's gonna go about halfway maybe, about halfway to the center, not past the center of the hole here. Before that, it's gonna be sort of like a little V wedge. And what that's going to do, it's going to allow oxygen to come in. It's also going to allow that hot dust to pile up and collect. And that's actually what's going to turn into an ember, is going to be that super hot dust. But it needs a place to go. So I'm going to carve out a little notch. Here you can see is our center point. I'm going to say it's going to go to here. So I'm going to mark it with my knife. Okay, so I marked it, I scored the wood. Now I'm gonna take my saw. This is a little bit bigger than I'd like. If you've got a smaller, finer saw, that'd be better. I'm gonna start with the big saw, and then I'm gonna use my knife to notch down, but I'm gonna start making a groove into my fireboard. Fire, fire, burning brightly, heal us with your light. All right, friends, we are just about done creating our wedge. You see the wedge that goes into our drill hole. One technique that I learned is on the bottom side here, where it's going to be collecting all that hot dust. It's good form to dig out a little, like a little space here for oxygen, for air, for that dust to gather on the underside of your fireboard. All right, friends, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a little trench at the bottom here for air and for the hot dust to gather. We got our notch, we got our drill hole. We are ready to make fire. Fire from Hashem feeds the fire from the sun, feeds the fire from the trees, feeds the fire that we light tonight. The fire from Hashem feeds the fire from the sun, feeds the fire from the